You can be free. You can be free of all of the stuff that's happened in your past, of all of the wrong that you did, of all of the mess in your current life, of whatever chaos is happening in the country. You can be free. I've had a lot happen in sobriety. Amazing and absolutely heartrendingly tragic. I get to be free today.
I
I
heard
heard
it
it
through
through
the
the
grapevine.
Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine Half Hour Variety Hour featuring the collective voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am Alice, an alcoholic in Oakland, California.
And I'm Don, an alcoholic in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Woo! Hey, Don.
Hey, Alice.
We've got quite a show today. We're going to open with a newcomer question that is so juicy, and we need listeners to chime in. So here we go. Alex P. from Southern California writes,
What is the appropriate way to share about stressors, triggers from politics, news, current events in AA meetings? Do you just keep it so vague that you don't identify a side? I haven't shared about it because I don't want to know anybody's political views. However, I used to drink over this kind of stuff and carry resentment, and I want to get it out. Woo! What a question, yeah.
perfect question. Thank you, Alex.
So there are two AA traditions that can guide our thinking and our action here. Our 10th tradition is AA has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy.
And maybe more specifically, our fifth tradition, which is each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. So, Don, I think this is a beautiful opportunity for us to be what I think Grapevine is, which is a time capsule. You know, one of the things I love about Grapevine is if you want to know what was happening in the world or in AA, you can go back and read grapevines from that time period. And this is what's happening right now in the world.
Yeah, our country's very divided.
You know, the most divided in my life, and I'm 64, but Alcoholics Anonymous is always a safe space for us. And I love that Alex says, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I really don't, because I want to love you no matter what. And I want to like you no matter what. But I think that it gets tricky because the 10th tradition isn't about us individually. The 10th tradition is about the group. And the group ought not have an opinion on an outside issue. And this comes up not about politics for me, but about race. Like being Black isn't an outside issue for me. It's my identity. And so when people use it to say, well, like, don't talk about, you know, your experience as a person, I take some issue with that. But around politics, I feel like when we're really doing the job in Alcoholics Anonymous, talking about the solution, not the problems, that politics don't have a place, because politics are often the problem, not the solution.
Yeah, you know, I have to have an opinion to be an effective human being, to be a citizen, to be a caring person in the world on outside issues. And to be a full person, I need to have thought and be responsible and take action where I feel I can be effective. But within AA, I'm concerned about helping the still suffering alcoholic.
Donna, I 100% agree. Alcoholics Anonymous gives me my life back. It gives me a life. I'm not really sure. I started drinking at 4. I was, you know, full blown at 13. I didn't have a life. So Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a life, and it gave me a life to be a citizen of the whole world. And I am responsible for having a point of view, for being a critical thinker, for being useful in and outside the rooms. But I don't want to ever do anything in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that would make anybody feel like they can't come to me to find the path to freedom and joy.
Yes, to quit drinking. And that's what's held us together all this time, because AA has felt these kinds of difficulties before, and the reason we're here are because of these two traditions.
Folks, this is a juicy topic. We want to hear your experience, especially old timers, but I mean, maybe newcomers too. How do you share about the stressors of politics as they are today in AA meetings? Or how do you deal with meetings where politics are included? You can email us at podcast@aagrapevine.org or just pick up the phone and call us 212-870-3418.
Respond now so that we can return to this hot topic question soon. Okay, Alice, who's our guest today?
Today we'll be talking to Leslie P. from Angleton, Texas. Texas has got good recovery. And later, we're going to dive into some really interesting listener feedback.
But first, the news!
The news!
There is an opening for AA Grapevine Incorporated non-trustee director. Non-trustee directors are AA members selected for their business or professional experience that relates to the activity of the corporation. A non-trustee director may serve up to 4 successive one-year terms. For more details and how to apply, visit aagrapevine.org or in the Grapevine app under Important Updates or the News tab in the AA Meeting Guide app. Deadline November 12, 2025. The 65th ICIPA, the International Conference of Young People in AA, is in Minneapolis, Minnesota, August 28th through the 31st. More information and registration is at ICIPA.org. That's ICYPAA.org.
I really want to love up ICIPA. I want to encourage all of the people in the sound of my voice to go to Minnesota if you can for ICIPA. ICIPA usually is 4th of July weekend, but because of international, ICIPA shifted its date to the end of August.
Let's all go to ICIPA.
Let's all go to ICIPA. And if you've never been to a YPA, a Young People in AA, you have not lived. Because if you want to know what it looks like to be not a glum lot, it's ICIPA.
That's great, Alice. I didn't tell you, I'm speaking at NICIPA, North Carolina, the Saturday night meeting. I've never done anything like that, so I'm going to be talking to you beforehand about not having enough sense to be scared. Because that's what you told me.
I'm not smart enough to be scared. I'm not.
What are the Grapevine's most popular books? Emotional Sobriety 1 and 2. Both are filled with experiences by sober AA members, many with long-term sobriety, about the positive transformations we can achieve by practicing the principles of the program in all aspects of our lives. The stories show how the rewards are serenity, emotional balance, and an increased joy for living. Visit aagrapevine.org/books.
Leslie, an alcoholic from Angleton, Texas. My sobriety date is January 26th of 1994, and my home group is in Lake Jackson, Texas.
Hi, Leslie.
We're thrilled you've joined us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. I am delighted to be here. Shoot, I'm delighted to be anywhere sober and not in jail.
That's a fact.
You know, the word on the street is that Texas has great recovery. Talk to us about how you got drawn into Alcoholics Anonymous.
I actually was sentenced to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had gone to Al-Anon because the problem was not me. And I made the mistake of actually working some steps with my Al-Anon sponsor. And she sent me to AA meetings where I absolutely did not relate. I was 24. Everyone else was at least 30. Some of them were really ancient, 40, 50, 60, the age I am now.
Right.
And most of them were men. And so their drinking experiences were very different from mine. But part of how I got drawn in was I went to an ICIPA convention.
Woohoo!
All right.
It was amazing. Suddenly, I was surrounded by people my age and even younger, so much younger than me. And they were having fun and they listened to the kind of music I liked, and we were dancing. And it was amazing. And I just absolutely, at that point, began to believe that maybe Alcoholics Anonymous could work. But shortly after that, I had my mom was killed in a car wreck unexpectedly. And it just devastated me. And I was still hanging around AA. I didn't have a sponsor. I wasn't working any steps. I'm going to meetings. I think I'm working the program because I'm reasonably intelligent. I can read those steps on the wall. I could read the book. And I was reading the book.
It's kind of doing it on your own.
You're a guest.
Yes, I was, but I didn't know that. So I'm starting to die. I won't even eat because I'm so upset and angry, and I've gotten down to 89 pounds. Thank God, one of the members who I had known as, he'd been my baseball coach when I was in third grade, cornered me and said, "You better start working the steps and get a sponsor. You're going to die in Alcoholics Anonymous, little girl." And I listened, and I called his wife. And she started talking to me, and I knew she was too old, and she listened to the wrong music, and our religious views were miles apart. There was no way this woman would get me. And she totally captured my heart. She started sharing her experience, strength, and hope. And I got to live.
Leslie, did you consider yourself an alcoholic?
I did not. I was also attending another program. And I did consider myself to be a part of there, but I was not finding recovery there.
We all have other issues, but in AA, we focus on alcoholism. Tell me, what is an alcoholic?
An alcoholic is a person whose mind will tell them anything to get them to take a drink, and whose body, once we've taken a drink, will insist upon continuing to drink. We cannot control when we drink, where we drink, or how we drink. And most of all, although we may occasionally exercise a bit of control, it's always going to go back away. And we're always going to lose it again. And that's where my sponsor captured me. She just kept pounding on that first step and sharing different ways until finally I could relate. Finally, I could see those times when I was pregnant and I intended to not drink because it's not wise to drink when you're pregnant. And then I decided that milk and vodka, a White Russian, would be fine.
Oh, here we go. That's right in the book.
Yeah, I know. And you get to that part of the book where people are talking about whiskey and milk, and everybody's like, "Ooh, who would put milk in their whiskey?" And I'm like, "Well, I
did.
put milk in my vodka," you know. And suddenly I became a part of, but I could not do it alone. I had to do it sitting down with another alcoholic.
You know, one of the things I really appreciate about how over the 90 years of Alcoholics Anonymous and all of the time that we've had the book is that Alcoholics Anonymous grows and expands, and it makes the tent bigger and bigger. Because Leslie, you just said, I had a first step experience once I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was already here, and I realized here my first step that I was powerless, my life was unmanageable. Some people get to Alcoholics Anonymous with the first step. And the book Alcoholics Anonymous has at the back those 3 different sections of stories, right? The pioneers,
Yeah.
you know, those of us that got here while we still had our teeth, and then the people who was living in the freezer on the side of the road. And you don't have to get here with a first step. If you come and you are willing to listen to us, hear us, let us reach you, you can have a first step experience in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yes. And the longer I stay and the more people I work with and the more time I spend going into treatment centers and talking about that first step with people, the more experiences I identify in my own life. 30 years into it, I'm still going, "Oh, wow, that's another example of that first step that I had never realized until that day was an attempt to control and enjoy my drinking.
More will be revealed.
Yes, yes, stick around, it gets better.
So you got a sponsor and you started working the steps. What was another step besides the very first step to admit that you were powerless over alcohol and that your life had become unmanageable? What other step challenged you that your sponsor helped you through and that you saw that it worked after you did it?
Oh, the fourth step.
Inventory.
I got here, I was a victim, nothing was my fault. And when I first started trying to do the fourth step, I took what I had written to her and she said, no, we're going to try this again. And, putting
What was wrong?
the other person aside entirely. I could not just say, I lied. I had to say, well, they made me lie because they put so much pressure on me and they scared me and I couldn't just say I was afraid. I had to show how everything was someone else's fault.
Justification.
Victims don't recover.
No.
The spiritual axiom in the 10th step is whenever I'm disturbed, something's wrong with me.
That's right.
It is. And even if, I am walking through a parking lot on the way to a 12-step call and someone swoops out of nowhere and harms me, the way I handle it, that's my part.
So it's not just about not drinking. Did your relationship to your mother's death change?
My relationship to my mother's death totally changed. And I actually ended up writing a story for the Grapevine about it. I didn't have a car when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and so people would give me rides. And I had promised if I ever got a car, I'm going to give people rides. And I gave somebody a ride, and she was so grateful. And I'm listening to this woman, and I'm thinking, I'm not very grateful to my mom. She's given me a home. She's, letting me use her car to go to meetings. And I got home and I started talking to my mom, and I had this wonderful conversation with her about how much I loved her and how grateful I was for her and everything that she'd done for me my whole life. And since I'd gotten sober and helping me and helping my children. And the next morning, I was about to leave for work and we'd had a little argument. And I remembered in meetings about we make amends. And I wasn't on that step yet, but I went back in. I made amends to my mom. I said, Mom, I'm sorry. I was acting terrible. I'll eat this toast that you want me to eat. And I got back in my car and left. And that's the day that she was killed in a wreck. But because of Alcoholics Anonymous, because of the gratitude that I learned how to express here, because of learning how to admit my wrongs immediately and go back and repair relationships as quickly as possible, my last memories of my mother are amazing and wonderful. Yeah. And I don't have to regret the past in that instance.
Yeah. Thank you, Leslie. Now, don't go anywhere. We need a lot more out of you.
It's time for listener feedback.
Hey folks, we want to hear your comments. Call 212-870-3418 or write us at podcast@aagrapevine.org.
From Victor S. Victor writes, hello. Thank you for your service. Tradition 9 says AA as such ought never be organized, but AA is organized. There's the General Service Office, there's area assemblies, there's trustees, there's delegates, there's voting and whatnot. Seems like a contradiction. Could you please explain what this means?
Whew, what a great question, Victor. Our three legacies are unity, service, and recovery. So AA as such ought never be organized. I believe as such means the recovery legacy, our 12-step program, how we help the still suffering alcoholic. That's what as such means. For example, we don't keep a list of sponsors or members. You're a member if you say you are. We don't direct them on how to do step work. Everybody's independent. We got no rules for groups. Groups are autonomous. There's no central AA control of this whole thing. We don't own and run treatment centers, but we do publish recovery materials so that they know that we're here and how our program works. Bill W. realized we must be organized to continue to make AA work possible. So the AA structure. I suspect you already have, but if not, read Bill's essays on the creation of the 12 traditions in our book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. He talks about this extensively there. And there's also a pamphlet entitled AA Traditions, How They Developed.
One of the things, Victor, this is a really great question, and it does feel contradictory. And at the time that it was written, I think that Bill was saying, we're never going to become governmental.
Yeah.
We're never going to become bureaucratic. So when you look at the long form of the ninth tradition, it talks about, the rotation of service positions. It talks about minimizing organizations. It talks about all of the responsibilities that we, even as organized workers, have back to the group. So absolutely, this is about the recovery side of our three legacies. But even on the service side and even on the unity side, we have a way that we minimize the structures that we put in place so that we can continue to be nimble. One of the things, if you don't know this, Victor, come into Alcoholics Anonymous and get a service position, and you'll know what we mean, because we're going to rotate you out into incompetency in your next service position.
Yeah, and you don't get to stay and become an expert. Leslie, what do you think?
Alice just said it perfectly. I was thinking, if you've never been to a committee meeting at the district or area level, go.
It's such a great week, Don. We've got another letter from Joe A. Joe writes, where can I find literature in AA about setting boundaries? I hear it often in meetings, but I haven't noticed it in our literature. I've read about how love, tolerance, patience, and acceptance should be a way of life. Live and let live as well. This almost sounds contradictory. Where did the boundary concept come from? Godspeed, Joe. Joe is from Grafton, Wisconsin. What do you think, Don?
Whew. Well, first thing I thought was, let's ask the literature desk at the General Service Office. And we got a letter back. Here's some excerpts from that. My name is Rayner, and I'm a GSO staff member. AA literature is generally suggestive and not instructive, descriptive and not prescriptive. The simplest answer is that the determination of boundaries is an individual choice for each member to make, ideally in consultation with a sponsor and prayerful understanding. Explicit literary reference would not replace the suggestive nature expressed in AA literature. The topic of boundaries may be more directly addressed within Al-Anon literature. Changes in language and the lack of direct reference may help to prove a consistent truth that, quote, we realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. That's from Alcoholics Anonymous, page 164. It can be important to remember that the society has changed since the book was written. Some suggestions, such as allowing a prospect to stay in your homes, may exist at a cross-section of spiritual wisdom and practical caution. What a way to say that. Thank you, Rayner. In other words, it's not a good idea anymore.
I wouldn't say that part. I mean, I'm not sure it's not a good idea, but I think that we've got to be really, really practical about how we think about this, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rayner goes on to quote examples of boundaries from the Big Book, like on page 83. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone.
And lastly, I asked Deb Y., a professional recovery therapist who's been in practice since 1990, to respond, and I got this letter. The word boundary came into its own as a buzzword in the 80s. Initially, it was used therapeutically as a way to define and achieve emotional, spiritual, and physical safety. Fortunately, the concept made its way into the culture of Al-Anon. Recovering codependents were able to integrate that concept with detachment, self-care, and emotional, physical, spiritual safety. Because the primary focus in Alcoholics Anonymous is to establish sobriety, relational boundaries are not an ongoing theme, However, if you study the 12 traditions, woven into the intent and wording are boundaries. They aren't referred to as such, but when we look closely, we see these are boundaries. One ultimate authority, servanthood, not leadership, group autonomy, our primary purpose, self-supporting, attraction rather than promotion, and of course, anonymity. They knew that incorporating the 12 traditions was crucial. They just didn't have the terminology back in the 30s.
What a great response. I really appreciate that. And finally, the Grapevine publisher Chris C. shared, I think what Joe is talking about is boundaries in relationships. There's discussion of this in the big book in the chapter To Wives and the Family Afterwards. There are many chapters about people, places, and things in setting boundaries around drinking occasions in living sober. Grapevine has 2 books that may be helpful here, Forming True Partnerships and One-on-One. Of course, the 12 traditions are all about setting boundaries for groups, and there's lots of literature on the traditions.
Whew.
Man, I love us for giving Joe this kind of thorough, something from the General Service Office, something from a therapist, and something from the publisher. Joe, thank you so much for calling out to us.
Leslie.
Also, the 12 and 12 in the steps portion has so much about relationships. They don't use the word boundaries. We've either dominated those around us or we've been overly dependent upon them. And that's where that true partnership quote comes from that became the title of the Grapevine book.
One of the things I think is really important about boundaries in Alcoholics Anonymous is while the boundaries in my mind might be for other people, the truth is the boundary is really for me. And that when I go through the steps and I begin to be free, then I'm present with myself and I can see where I end and where you begin. I can see what's an appropriate exchange. And then the way that people talk to me, the way that I talk to people, what I say yes to, the confidence to say no, showing up on time, being, all of those things become more natural because I'm in possession of myself. And so I don't remember what boundaries were for me in the beginning. But boundaries for me now are more about being my authentic self than it is about something for someone else.
I remember when the first time that someone was angry at me and I did a quick mental inventory to see, okay, do I have a part here? Have I done something? And I looked at it and I had done nothing. The other person was simply angry at me because of their expectations. It wasn't about me. This is something so they were disturbed. And for the first time I was able to go, okay, well then I need to look at this person with compassion rather than defensiveness, which is where I naturally wanted to come from. Someone's attacking me. Yeah. And being able to do that for the first time I was like, oh, wow, this is what they're talking about. So I don't have to fight the other person just because they're fighting me.
And even if I can't see where they're coming, Don, thank you for the reference to the sick man prayer on page 67, right? And it's a part of our 4th step. And it says, and I thought the sick man prayer was for the sick man. The sick man prayer is for me, right? The sick man prayer is, God save me from being angry. And when somebody does something and I feel like justified to be angry at them because what they did, all resentment's justified. I have a reason for all of it. But the truth is that this maturity, this spiritual growth may be there sick and suffering like I am sometimes, like I've been. And what do I want when I'm sick and suffering? Grace, love, tolerance. And I can give it to them because sometimes I'm the crazy person. Often, I'm the crazy person.
That's it.
I met my present husband in Alcoholics Anonymous. And as we were dating, we both were aware that we had to do things very differently than we'd ever done them before. And so talking about things up front instead of waiting and having a fight later was one of the relational skills that we learned. And it may not exactly be boundaries, but it was because it encouraged us to find out how each person felt about things and then figure out what was going to work for us. And, is there anything that you need to say to another person at once from that 10th step at night? And go ahead and say those things instead of waiting and then being angry and then causing an explosion. It's really made a difference in our relationship.
Leslie, thank you so much for joining us today. What a beautiful, beautiful soul.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you guys so much. This has been a joy.
You can give a gift subscription of Grapevine or Lavinia.
Grapevine has a long waiting list of incarcerated members who want one. Get your group, district, area, or AA friends to join in.
It's easy. Go to aagrapevine.org and look for Carry the Message at the top of the site.
If you're like this alcoholic,
And this alcoholic,
there is never, ever enough. Stick around after the close for a little extra.
oh yeah, I'll have some extra.
I'm at the very wit's end.
A recovering alcoholic went out to dinner and was asked by the hostess if he would like a cocktail.
No thanks. I have an important business meeting next month. It's really not that funny. Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit aa.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.
We got this email with the subject, Carrying Your Message.
I ran into an old AA friend at the gym this morning. She asked what I was listening to on my headphones. I told her it was the AA Grapevine weekly podcast. She had never heard of it. She made me take her phone then and there to show her how to find and listen to the podcast. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I just got you a new subscriber. Please keep up the good work. Listening to your message is how I start every new week. Kelly C., Louisville, Kentucky.
Hey, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. I love Louisville, Kentucky.
Thanks, Kelly.
Here's another one. Here's an email from Matt. Matt writes, thank you so much for your service. You've changed my morning commute forever. And you've got me listening to the Grapevine in the app. Gratefully yours, Matt W.
Gratefully yours.
I'm going to be grateful now.
You know, when we went to the international convention last month, we had grapes all everywhere. Alice, you got us all grape pins, and even Chris was wearing a grape pin when he spoke to everyone at the big meeting at the end of 35,000 people. I was so proud seeing that little grape pin on his lapel. And I had a couple of grape ties, so I'm grateful.
And I'm going to be grateful moving forward. Thank you so much for writing us, Matt. These letters really make a difference.
Joe A., who gave us our boundary question, included a joke at the end of his letter. Some listeners will know that Sam and I did a recovery podcast called The Boiled Owl before coming to the Grapevine. Joe writes, P.S. Why did Sam and Don recruit Alice for the AA Grapevine podcast? Because they were feeling owlless since leaving the Boiled Owl podcast. Owlless. Like an owl, Alice has the knowledge, and she's a real hoot.
Joe, what a great letter from Joe. And now that I am both from Matt grateful and from Joe, I am owlless. Thank you.
That's a terrible joke. It was clever, but really, it's a terrible joke.
I think it's a great joke.
It's really not that funny.
It's really not that funny.